Okay, so welcome to the fourth webinar of the series Enabling the Adaptive and Agile Organization with AEquacy. Today, we will dedicate some time to the exploration of accountability in the workplace, why it is critical and unfortunately underutilized, and how to boost it. Also, the notion of personal and organizational accountability has emerged in the last two decades as a clear theme for optimizing organizational effectiveness in a world that has become, of course, fast-paced and ever-changing. And what makes it crucial is that there is a direct relationship between personal accountability and organizational performance. So quite simply, employees with a high degree of personal accountability perform at a higher level than those who lack individual accountability. Leaders or employees who take individual accountability for the situation and focus on what they can do about it manage much better than those who blame others or procrastinate solutions or play victims to their circumstances. And in general, organizational culture that embrace and promote employee accountability outperform those that lack, let's say, individual accountability. So this is the introduction. I would like to have a conversation with you on the meaning of accountability for you personally, and the impact that the presence or the absence of accountability make on people and organizations. So in a minute, I will send you to breakout rooms with 4 of you in each room. And I invite you to discuss these 3 questions among the group and to capture your thoughts. And to capture your thoughts, I would invite you to join me on Concept Board, which is, I don't know if you know the platform, but even if you don't know it, it's so simple that it's pretty easy to use. Okay, so let's stay on the Concept Board and let's check your conclusions. So, what does accountability mean to you? Anyone who would like to comment on the discussion you had?
Well, we may start with team 1 and then we'll move to team 2 and so on.
Yes, so team 1.
Circle or in the, okay, yeah, that's good.
Team 1 tells me everything.
Well, accountability is being held to a standard of doing what you said you would do, or being there's some if somebody else is holding you accountable, then they're holding you to be responsible for what you said you would do or what they think you should do. Mm-hmm. But if you hold yourself accountable, you have some way of self-managing what's expected of you.
It's a very good point, and we will tackle on it in a few minutes. So what is the difference between accountability imposed by external people or systems and internal accountability?
The difference, which we get to on the other 2 boards, is if external accountability means that the organization has to have some system, either a manager or some mechanism by which they evaluate what you've done and compare it to what they expected of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else from the first team on question number 1 on the meaning of accountability?
We sort of summed it up as acting like an adult, not a child.
Yeah, there is a question, an issue of maturity in this. Yes. Okay. Um, Given that we are on this first question, may I ask also team 2 or team 3 if they have anything to add?
To me, seems pretty much in line with what we group synthesize.
Okay. Okay. So being accountable to someone else, so doing what you promised to do, and also I see having some consequences if you don't do that. So there is also one one mechanism for holding people accountable. So let's move to the second question: whether the effect when accountability is part of the organizational culture. I will start again with team number 1, and then 2 and 3.
So team number 1 on question 2, right?
Yes. So Brian, Eva, or Alana, or
We said there would be no need for micromanagement. So because people would be self-driven and self-directed, and also performance would be increased because there's something about people being engaged. So yeah, that would be the effects that we came up with. And it would, yeah, absolutely, we'd see it in the collaboration. I don't know who put this orange sticker here, but yeah, we'd see all of that as well. Collaboration, creativity.
Pardon the interruption, but Giovanna, did you want to be recording this?
Sorry? Yes, I'm recording it.
Oh, I don't see the recording light. So I suspect that when we came from breakout rooms, it stopped recording.
It could be. Denise,
No, it's recording. It is recording. It is
Okay.
recording.
I also see it recording. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think we also thought about. We also said it was a positive effect, of course, for a culture to be like that, and that it's something that comes internally and not necessarily externally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about self-ownership and about self-motivation,
Yeah.
which is why it's so hard to implement in a culture.
Exactly.
Giovanna?
Yeah.
Sorry if I disturb you, because we had some issues to move the things, and we wrote in the chat. Sorry, that is there. Okay, are in order. So the first one is the first question. That. Thank you so much, and sorry for that.
Great. Shall we need, Antonella, do we need to come back to the first question to? Oh no, well, the definition would be very similar to the others. So let me go to number 2.
Okay,
yeah.
Sorry for that, Giovanna.
Do you want to share something about your inputs?
No, what we said and we discussed that when there is the accountability, there is this sense of entrepreneurship that is spread between people, and at the same time there is proactivity. There is the willingness to do actions. At the same time, we think that there is the growth of every person in the organization, and is also more there are more possibility to achieve better the goals that we have as a company, as an organization.
Yeah. Okay. Anything from Team 3 that hasn't been mentioned yet?
No, looking at what there is in there sounds good. It sounds that also other people, they have similar. Yeah.
So Team 3, you start first on 3. So what happens when accountability is lacking?
You can go.
Okay, yeah, okay. Well, we thought that there is a certain lack of motivation from individuals, don't feel, be part of something, etc. So not really motivated, so not really high satisfaction. A sense of passive. Okay, I don't feel it's my job. I don't feel it's what I need to do, etc., etc. So pretty passive in the way of collaborating and working, etc. And of course, also lack of proactiveness. So if I don't feel that I can contribute, I can participate, etc., I will have no ideas. I will not share ideas, etc., etc. So pretty much about all around lack of motivation, lack of proactiveness, etc.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Team number 2, anything to add?
It's pretty much in line. We decline more or less the same points, adding few more.
Okay. And what about team 1? Anything in addition to that?
I think lack of trust is one of the main points that I think we're missing, and which is what everything should be based upon, I guess. Yeah, and lack of proactiveness is lack of initiative and thinking that you have to wait for someone else to do your work, and you just become a bit more lazy, I guess.
Giovanna, what we shared is also when there's a lack of accountability, there's a dominance of processes. People tend to stay with the processes, with what it always been done. I mean, it's always been done this way. Why we should change? So processes and procedures dominate, despite the creativity. I mean, everybody tends to
comply.
The organization builds layers of bureaucracy.
Yeah. There's a dominance of bureaucratic culture. I mean, you tend to do what it always been done in some way. There's no entrepreneurship, and there is a tendency to stay within the roles, within the procedures, within the boxes, and no initiative at all.
And the organization becomes the parent.
Yeah, exactly.
And treating us like children.
Exactly. Yeah, the relationship changes, in the way you were, parenting the employees, in a way. So thank you for this sharing. I would like to go back to the PowerPoint because I would like to share one of the definitions that I found on the internet, and this definition is one of the most common that I found, and it says that, in a way, accountability, as it has been traditionally conceived, implies having to make an account in a form of reporting. And this researcher called Brooks offered this definition of accountability, where he emphasizes some words. So, for example, mechanism, because it's a procedural activity. Individuals, because the activity focuses on individuals, in fact. Also sanctions, because it seems that sanctions are kind of essential to performance. And also unsatisfactory as an element of accountability that brings in the personal element of holding offenders to account. Now, I would like to share some data that I found from a few years ago, to be honest, but I think that is still relevant. A consulting company named Partners in Business published a study on a sample of 40,000 employees, and they were sampled on a variety of industries, and the research was aimed at understanding the attitude and actions associated with accountability on the ability of individuals, teams, and organizations to deliver the expected results. So the study reveals that there is an accountability crisis in organizations today, because if you read the numbers, 80% of the surveyed said that feedback is something that happens to them only when things go wrong, or not at all. So this means that accountability is really is very often perceived as strictly consequential and almost entirely after the fact. Also, the lack of clarity around the key results led 85% of the survey participants to share that they're not sure what their organization are trying to achieve, which is the opportunity for creating alignment and focus also. 92% say that they are unable to take accountability for their desired results. And when it comes to holding others accountable, 82% either try but fail, or avoid it altogether. So this data overwhelmingly shows that the practice of accountability in the workplace has resulted in the view that accountability is something that happens to you when things go wrong, rather than something that you do to yourself to ensure results. So it's kind of a punitive view of accountability that set in motion a pattern of behavior that significantly hamper the ability to execute directives, objectives, change, deliver the outcomes. On the other side, the study, it seems to suggest that improvement in accountability at the individual, team, organizational level can yield significant improvement in performance and desired results. But as I mentioned before, I would like to introduce a distinction here between accountability versus responsibility, or felt responsibility. So accountability means that we are liable or answerable for our actions to someone or some authority. And one way to think about being accountable is literally, if we are held accountable, then if something goes wrong, we are required to give an account of what happened. So in this sense, accountability is really something that we are held to only after a task has been done or not done. Personal, or let's say felt responsibility, means that an individual perceives or accepts an obligation for a particular situation or event. Two researchers, if I'm not wrong, they are called Cummings and Anton or something like this, in 1990 have made an important distinction between objective responsibility based on one's role for an event and one's perception or felt responsibility. And so the other important distinction is between external and internal control. And you mentioned this concept in your discussions, if I remember well. So external controls means that I'm held accountable by an external system of verification of compliance and reward punishment for the outcome. And internal control means that I'm driven by my internal felt responsibility for reaching a specific outcome. So let's see what are the dynamics and the different output of these two different approaches. So external control, so what happens, especially in traditional organizations, is that employees are closely supervised. Information on performance is shared only to the supervisor. Additionally, monitoring systems produce constant vigilance for the purpose of control over production that paradoxically create resistance. And moreover, if accountability used for monitoring purposes, and if individuals know the view of the person to whom they are accountable, what happens is they will typically accept those the view of the one they are accountable to, without engaging in discussions, producing, let's say, blind conformity at the very best. The kind of conformity that probably Mauro was mentioned. I'm doing just what my boss is telling me to do. And finally, with such kind of external control, employees come to be motivated by external sanctions and rewards rather than the task itself. So their behavior is aimed at gaining rewards and avoiding the sanction, of course, to the detriment of work involvement and the acceptance of responsibility. So paradoxically, this kind of control could produce reduced levels of felt responsibility. If we look at internal control, acting out of a sense of personal control is likely to create internal motivation. So when employees have the freedom to choose what behavior to carry out, how to deliver the work, this self-determination contributes largely to felt responsibility. And also individuals who perceive their actions as having significance, having purpose, are more likely to perceive felt responsibility. So for example, saying how my behavior fits into the big picture, or recognizing how the organizational purpose is aligned with my values. This create a lot of sense of felt responsibility. So let me stop for just a moment. Does it resonate with you? Any comment?
Yes, it does. It makes me wonder, okay, what context or environment can we or the organization create to reinforce the sense of felt responsibility and making oneself accountable? And I think that the intrinsic motivation of we talked about autonomy or agency, having a sense of purpose that resonates with one's own values. So if the organization's purpose and my sense of personal purpose, if those are in alignment, that will make it a whole lot easier for me to say to accept responsibility for my performance.
Yeah, I would like in a minute to share how we believe AEquacy, which is the design that we use, how AEquacy contributes to the increase of accountability and where we can find environments or ways to create this kind of environment, even if we are not in AEquacy. I mean, it's not our domain, only domain. Any other comment before I move forward?
No, it's okay.
So let's take a look at what is accountability, how is lived accountability in AEquacy. So to start, I would say that in AEquacy, individuals are not accountable to one manager because we don't have managers. So people works in teams, and each team member is accountable to each other and to the team. All team members have visibility on the progress of each person, as well as the feedback that they are receiving from peers and from their peers. And in each team member can intervene with feedback or support when they notice that another member is underperforming or is having problems. So the team members feel a sense of, let's say, commonality of purpose, because they are all in the same boat, and the success of the team depends on each single member of the team. Also, the members of an AEquacy organization know where they stand and where is their contribution to the team and the organization as a whole. The strategy is very clear and shared. There are individuals, OKRs, objectives and key results, that I mentioned in another webinar, that stem from and contribute to the team OKRs. And the team OKRs stem from and contribute to the organization OKRs. In this way, the contribution that each person makes to the organization is very, very clear, but also aligned. AEquacy organizations are also purpose-driven. It means that the deep reason why of the existence of the organization is not just making money, but a much broader and significant reason that motivates and inspires its members and give them a sense of meaning. So the purpose of each team stems directly from and is aligned to the organizational purpose. So there is this sense of alignment also in the purpose that contributes to providing people with clear significance. We spoke about dynamic roles in the past in other webinars, but in AEquacy, the roles are very well defined, have a clear perimeter inside which the person holding the role can make any decision. It's the domain, like in Holacracy. And dynamic roles have a clear list of accountability. Generally, we suggest to limit the accountabilities to the 3 or 4 that have the biggest impact and where the focus shall be directed. In my conversation with leaders in traditional organizations, sometimes I'm really astonished to hear that they have like 54 objectives, and it's impossible, physically and mentally impossible for a person to work for, to deliver 54 objectives. So we prefer to of course stay on the priorities, to focus on the priorities of the organization. Again, another element is the personal authority. Self-management is a practice in which responsibility for setting, accomplishing, and rewarding the accomplishment of both personal or organizational set goals are placed in the hands of an individual rather than a supervisor. So each person has total control on the tasks they need to carry out to reach their self-assigned goals, total control on who to collaborate with, total control on how to accomplish their goals. So we believe that this aspect is the stronger booster of felt responsibility. You are in control. Another element is both feedback and feed forward. Just out of curiosity, have any of you received feed forward? Any yes? Beware, because if you say yes, I will ask you to share what do you think the difference between feedback and feed forward.
Very barely experimented a feed forward, although I have I do believe a clear concept of what feed forward is, but barely a feedback is also feed forward in my experience.
Yeah, well, first of all,
it's never combined with a feed forward. Yeah. Feedback to me is I give you an information on what I see happen when you do something.
Yeah, in the past.
Yeah, I see you do something, and I send you I send you a message of what happens when you do something. A feed forward is how to change what you do to eventually improve the effect of what you do. In other way, I am on the same side. I am on the same side of the table. I look at what happens with you, and I help you to move forward.
Yeah. Well, the focus of feed forward is the future instead of the past. And also, generally, feed forward is not judgmental. It's just empowering, because it reinforces positive relationship also between the people that exchange this information. And we believe that it reinforces also felt responsibility. In the case of AEquacy, both feedback and feed forward, as you know, are public. So everyone can see where is any other person in the organization in terms of feedback received. Also, in AEquacy, there is indeed a form of external monitoring, and it's not just only personal self-monitoring, because the whole functioning of AEquacy is based on peer pressure. But the main goal of the external monitoring is to make everybody's progress public, to help teams to self-organize. So teams and individuals as well know at any given moment where they are vis-a-vis their accountabilities, so that they can have healthy performance conversations as often as they are needed. So, for example, in our studies, in my company, we do a very brief performance conversation every week, because we check our OKRs, the individual OKRs, and we just share where we feel we are in the progress in the execution of all our plans. Mm-hmm. And in each team, one person in rotation plays the role of the coach. So the coach facilitates this conversation. And I have to say, it takes us 10 minutes. So 10 minutes once a week, and everybody knows where everybody else stands. And if the performance is okay, or somebody needs some support, some help.
Giovanna, how do you deal with egos?
Mauricio, egos are more prominent in a hierarchical organization when you need to, find your place and get to the higher level. In an environment like AEquacy, egos are not supported. I mean, there's nothing to be egoistic about, because.
But it's say someone that works for you. Say someone that works for you gives you feedback, and it's not something you feel good about yourself. Is it your training and your self-awareness and your self-confidence that allows you to take that feedback and not feel bad because someone that it's your employee, I guess, because you're the owner of the company? Well, how do you I just feel it's weird.
Good point. Well, I did receive negative feedback from the people that worked with me sometimes. And
are they still working for you?
Of course. Of course, and they were completely right. So they helped me to, be more mindful when I make some requests. But one of the things that for us is very important, I don't know if you remember, I once said that the AEquacy framework has 4 elements. So one is let's say the supporting environment. The other one are the smart systems. The other ones are the values of the culture. And one is let's say the skills that people need. So personal mastery, so the certain kind of psychological maturity for us is really important to develop among the members, because yes, if you take things personally, it's very different than taking the feedback as a gift, for example.
Yeah.
So that I'm
yeah.
This is very important. I believe that for example, if the company has a very entropic culture, because maybe we start implementing AEquacy on a company that has a history of distrust, for example. You need to rebuild that trust together with implementing AEquacy, because it will be easier. So, the personal aspect is very important as well. Thank you for the question. Any takeaway from, because I'm aware that we are getting to the hour, so I would like to hear 2 or 3 of you from, what is your takeaway? Anything that resonated with you, or anything that you can bring and implement in your situation.
I'm struck by how much common sense there is.
Again, Brian, how much?
I'm impressed by how much it really just takes common sense, and exactly. and how we are able to draw parallels between the organizational behavior and a family's behavior.
Absolutely. Well, what we say in AEquacy is that because in our personal lives, we are capable of holding ourselves accountable for marry somebody, change city, buy a new house, make children, raise children, etc. Probably we have the same ability to self-organize at work. And for me, I think that the structures the overstructure of the hierarchical organization is really now showing all the limitations, and I think it's very heavy on people. And well, I was broadening the conversation, and it's not the right time. So thank you, Brian. Any other comment?
Well, there is one thing that I really like, and is something a little bit new for me, is the feed forward. The feedback is something that we have been using all the time in all companies, in all places, etc. But this is really quite a nice concept. So
Yeah.
which I would like to take and use more, or get this concept through, because it's very important. Actually, everybody's always thinking about the past. You did this and this way, etc. But what about next? What's next? Let's look at the next stage, etc. That's pretty good. Good. I like it.
Yeah, good. One more.
Well, I like as Davida was saying, the concept of feedback and feed forward. I think I think the concept of calling feedback a gift is very powerful. You don't see it like that. We're in a society where feedback is generally perceived as corrective or as a criticism, and we always talk about constructive feedback. That's why we need to put the constructive behind feedback, so it feels better. But in the end, people just don't like it. And I think changing that concept into a gift, because if you're receiving feedback, is because that person is trying to give you some sort of information for you to be a better person, I guess, better employee, better professional, or whatever. So I like that. And the other thing that I like is that, because I'm still, Giovanna, I'm still struggling with the idea of the whole AEquacy and with no bosses and all that. But I think it is a step-by-step concept where you don't have to throw yourself into the pool and get rid of bosses, but it's more of a change of culture. And while you're changing the culture, you're changing the whole way things are done. And this concept of accountability helps on that. So if you get everyone to be accountable, you already got, I don't know, 30 or 40% of the job done, because people are working by themselves and people are self-owners of their work. So I think that's what I like from the concept.
Well, and one of, for example, we don't only implement AEquacy to core. So I mean, we don't implement AEquacy only to those who want to get rid of hierarchy. Sometimes, like in the Nespresso case, we implemented a number of practices of AEquacy without changing the structure. And one of the major benefits that the team leader where we implemented the AEquacy shared with us is that accountability boosted. She said, now things happens even without me saying anything, pushing anyone, because they just go. So even within hierarchy, the practices help accountability. Okay, so to close,
I've got one single question for you, Giovanna. I was telling my team that the concept of accountability doesn't exist in Spanish. Does it exist in Italian? Do you have a word in Italian for it? And do we have to? Should we come up with a word? We have to come up with a word, because I don't know. I think feed forward seems like a made-up word. I don't know if it's made up, but maybe you should put your brains into coming up with a word in Italian and then I translate it into Spanish.
It's very difficult because in Italian there is only one word: responsibility, responsabilità, which is personal responsibility, but it doesn't make a distinction with being accountable to something else. It's a challenge. We'll come up
with something. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to remind you that our study on organization 2020 is free to download on our website on AEquacy.com. Also, remember, if you haven't signed it yet, that there is the AEquacy, there are other AEquacy webinars. The next one will be on May 20, and it's on building resilience to crisis. Also, I would like to invite you, if you haven't signed up yet, to the AEquacy Taster. It's a workshop, it lasts a few hours. The May 18 is a English version of the Taster. And you have the possibility to experience firsthand what happens when you move an organization from hierarchy to AEquacy. So I highly recommend you to do this experience if you haven't done it yet. And also, I remind you that the AFCP program, so the AEquacy Facilitator Certified Practitioner program, starts in July. So if you want to get trained on the AEquacy practices, this is the place to start. So with 5 minutes over the hour, I would like to thank you for your participation. I hope you also enjoyed the use of concept board, especially if you are a coach or a facilitator. Concept board is something that you can use with your clients, and there are some free versions if you want to use it. And just thank you, and hope to see you at the next webinar in May.
Thank you, Giovanna.
Thank you, Giovanna.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye.
day.
Thank you so much. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks. Bye-bye.